Washington, D.C., the newly reformed Make America Great Washington, D.C., rather than 4 years of a nightmare. And it's rather exciting being here, I must say. With the spirit is so different than it was during the times I was here. For my trial when I was framed and watched my friends get framed. And I was always worried they're going to put those ankle things on me like they did on Peter Navarro. They wondered why they were legitimately accused of being Nazis because they used ankle bracelets. I mean, wow. So we have Congressman McGuire, I think.
That's right.
And is the House still in session?
Yes, sir. We're still in. We've got a few holdouts. We're going back and forth, having some negotiations or talks with. We're hoping to get this done by midnight.
Are you serious?
We're hoping to, but we still got about 4 or 5 people that are having some questions. We call them holdouts. But I think Speaker Mike Johnson is determined that no one's going home until we get the big, beautiful bill passed.
You know, John, I was part of the Reagan administration. And the thing about President Reagan was he had this expression, my 80% friend is not my 20% enemy. And he also had a theory that you're never going to get everything in a negotiation. The art is to get more than the other guy gets. If you can get everything, fine. But it is a democracy, and we can't get everything we want. And this goes a long way, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done after it. I think the bill, I mean, the tax cut alone is going to just bolster our economy and make us stronger.
Well, this bill prevents the largest tax increase on the middle class in history. So if we don't pass this bill, everybody's going to feel it in a very painful way. And this is really, President Trump won a mandate. And this bill is the Trump agenda. And he made a lot of promises. I call it promises made, promises kept. And you probably noticed that it's no tax on tips, no tax on overtimes, and a huge tax deduction for seniors. And these are the things that President Trump ran on, and it secures our southern border. And it basically puts jet fuel on our economy. President Trump knows what he's doing. We saw what he did in the first term, and we just got to get these guys on board so we can get to work.
So instead of increasing the number of IRS agents, you're increasing the number of ICE and Border Patrol and law enforcement agents and military. Seems like a pretty good priority. It seems like the American people voted for that too.
Absolutely. That's what this bill is. It's what we voted for. And the thing is, you probably noticed that gas prices are going down just in time for 4th of July. This bill is going to help us get on the road to energy dominance. And we're going to drill, baby, drill. And, with energy, you lower the cost to farm, to get your products to market, and everything else. And so we got to get it done. It's amazing what President Trump is doing.
Well, John, it's amazing. Now, how long have you been in Washington?
Well, I told the reporters, I said, I've been here 6 months. I got it all.
You think you're a veteran?
I got no more questions. But what's awesome?
There's so much in that period of time. It's amazing.
It's been a heck of a 6 months. And, I've been working on some counter-UAS legislation. And I was in the Oval Office with President Trump. And he asked me a ton of questions. It was great. And then he told his team, y'all get behind McGuire. And then 2 days later, he endorsed me. I'm the first Republican he endorsed for re-election next year. And the media asked me, Mayor, said, why did he endorse you first? And I said, I don't know, but I'm not arguing.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna argue with it. People are dying for his endorsement, but you deserve it, John. You've been really you hit the ground running, just tremendously.
Yeah,
it's like you've been there.
That's why he did it. There's a reason he endorsed.
Like you're a veteran.
Yeah,
well, we've been working hard, guys, and I'll tell you what's really exciting is last week he put out an executive order with language that he and I discussed together with his team in the Oval Office. And for a freshman to be able to work with a president on an executive order is big. And then we're going to come behind it and codify it with a piece of legislation. But this legislation will keep our law enforcement, military people safer. It's going to save lives on the border. But I say it's going to save lives in every county, city, and town in America. So to be part of that is a huge honor.
Well, are we getting you think we're getting a vote tonight then?
Well, that's the plan. I mean, certainly I've learned one thing in Washington in 6 months is nothing is so until it's so.
Right,
You know,
right.
But
Right now, that's what the speaker is aiming for, to try to get it voted on tonight.
yes, and President Trump has great faith in the leadership here, especially Speaker Mike Johnson.
He should.
Respectful. He's a great, good religious, solid Christian, and he's a good leader. And he brings everybody in the room, listens to them. He knows how to build a team. It's going to be tough in this next few hours, but I'm praying and hoping, like he said, we'll get it done by midnight.
Well, God bless you, John. You really are amazing. You're going to accomplish. This is just the beginning for you too. It's amazing.
Well, it's an honor. And I'll tell you what, Mayor, you see what's going on in New York right now. They could use Mayor Rudy Giuliani back again.
Yeah, they could. May I say, Congressman, they could use anybody but him. How about somebody who's not a communist? That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, and I think he actually legitimately has video of him saying that we're going to raise taxes in the white neighborhoods.
100%.
Oh, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, like that isn't the worst kind of racism.
It is, and they want to have state-run grocery.
He just repeated that he's going to defund the police. That the police are racist and cruel. The New York City Police Department is racist and cruel, and he's going to be their commander in chief.
No, those guys are amazing.
That's going to be great for the morale of the police department.
Oh, I know. Those men and women are amazing. We would not have a country without our men and women in law enforcement, and they need leadership that supports them.
Yeah, it's enough. The attacks on them are just, well, John, we'll be talking. Good luck. Good luck tonight. We'll be watching.
Thank you. Always good to see you.
And Mayor, we know exactly why President Trump endorsed John first. Of course, John's been a strong supporter.
Sorry, my mic was off. Mayor, we know why the president endorsed John McGuire first. He was the strongest supporter of the president. He took on a sitting member who had turned his back not only on President Trump, more importantly, on the America First agenda. John stood up, took on a lot of arrows, right? When you take on a sitting member.
We had John on the show several times when he was.
It takes courage, and the president respects courage.
He was a challenger.
Right. And he's the real deal, military man, father. And we're big fans of Congressman McGuire. Yeah, he's one of a kind. So we know why the president endorsed him, and I want the media to know that too.
Yeah, I mean, he still can swim 100 miles. I mean, he's unbelievable energy. He's got unbelievable energy, and he's done a great job. And I think the president also was sending a message.
Right.
Right. 100%.
There are a couple others that are in that category now. Right. So we'll take a break. And we'll be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. Well, welcome back to America's Mayor Live, and I have with me I think he's going to be my co-anchor producer, Ali Reza.
That would be an honor.
Because once again, there are disturbing signs. Last time we had you on, we were talking about the threats, the concern that France had.
Right.
Because your compound is there, and they had the threats involving me and Richardson and Madame Rajavi and everyone else, and that French officials are seeing a real big uptick in threats coming out of possible Iranian terrorist groups. It was reported a week ago that the FBI is very active with Iranian shadow cells. Now we have a report from Germany that they were alerted and arrested a guy who was putting together profiles of people in the Jewish community in Berlin for assassination. And then we had a case. We had a case in Britain back in May that I didn't pay attention to, where there were, again, Iranian sleeper cells that were threatening to kill people. So this is starting to get too many to ignore it. And we have the 4th of July coming up. We have, which is a day of celebrations all over America. These terrorists love symbolic acts, unfortunately. Could this be the way Iran, the regime, strikes back and then say, well, it wasn't us, it was these independent, crazy terrorists? And then they'll hope that the president doesn't respond?
Well, it certainly is possible. Keep in mind that terrorism is not only in the DNA of the mullahs ruling Iran, but has acted since day one as one of the two pillars to keep the regime in power. They thrive on terrorism outside of Iran, which also includes their nuclear weapons program, their missile program, their drone program, but certainly their proxies and terrorism. But inside Iran, they rely on repression, killing their own population. Now, the fact of the matter is that they have built their entire structure for carrying out terrorism. This is not just some ragtag actions, just hiring a few people here and there. Rather, the whole structure of the Quds Force, which is one of the 5 forces within the Revolutionary Guards, whose task is only terrorism, and they've been operating for about 30 years. Then they work in collaboration with the foreign ministry, the so-called diplomats, who work hand in hand, provide intelligence, protection, using their diplomatic privileges to sneak in, bombs, intelligence, information, but also try to cover up and then get their agents, in case they got caught, get them back to Iran. Then you have the Minister of Intelligence, who have a long hand in carrying out these operations. And then, politically speaking, first of all, terrorism was never on the pause when it comes to Iran. They used different tactics, different forms of it. Sometimes it was heightened. Sometimes they use, foreign nationals instead of using their own agents. So you never know what they're going to use. The fact is that they're so desperate that they are, in the corner, that they feel the only thing really left for them is to resort to terrorism. Inside Iran, the people have rejected them. There were several rounds of major uprisings since 2018. That's around the time that they had that terror plot in Paris.
You know what surprised me about it, and we talked about it at the time. So there were two of them within about 4 months, right? There was one in Albania.
In March of
And
2018.
they were kind of similar. It was a group
Yes.
of 4 or 5 people, but one of them was an official of the Iranian government.
Absolutely.
And then the second one in France, official of the Iranian government.
Right.
That's very unusual. They try to distance themselves from it, like they had Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis doing all their dirty work, and this way they could say, "Well, don't attack us, don't attack us." They must have been pretty desperate to put diplomats in.
Yes, actually, in those cases you mentioned, they were so desperate because those protests had started inside the country.
Right.
They felt they need to deliver a major blow to the organized opposition.
They really
to have a network
directly
in
to
Iran.
MEK.
Exactly,
Yeah.
directly the MEK, which is the leading force fighting the Ayatollahs. They were the main target of the killings inside Iran, but also the target of the terrorism outside of Iran. And in March 2018 in Albania, and that the Albanian government eventually had to close down the Iranian embassy, expel the ambassador, all of their diplomats out because they were all too tied to this whole terror plot. And then in 2018, an actual diplomat of the regime went to Tehran, brought a powerful bomb using diplomatic pouch on a commercial airplane, brought it to Vienna, and then went to another country in Luxembourg, gave it to the two culprits to take it to Paris to detonate it there. And then all of the others, including the diplomat, were arrested. And for the first time, an official diplomat of the regime was convicted and sentenced to 20 years because of terrorism. And now I think you can see that they're definitely going to use not only their own nationals but also foreign nationals. There were many cases before that the regime hired foreign nationals or even used criminals,
Sure, there have been
gangs.
cases where negotiating with criminals and trying to pay them money. Right? Yeah.
Exactly, they pay them a lot. Just last year, a Spanish diplomat, Professor Alejo Vidal-Quadras, who was the former vice president of the European Parliament, because of his association, his defense of the Iranian resistance and Mrs. Rajavi, he was targeted and shot in point blank, and he was absolutely lucky to survive. He was shot in the face, and then who were that whole gang were that were hired in Spain, and some of them were in other countries, including in Netherlands. It was a big network of them. Several of them have been arrested, and they have been all hired by Tehran. So that's why when the FBI, for instance, in this country, they talk about the sleeper cells, they talk about the increased threat by the Iran regime. And don't forget that the Iran regime officially threatened to kill the president of the United States, Secretary Pompeo, National Security Advisor John Bolton, a whole host of others. And as we speak today, on the website of the Supreme Leader Khamenei, there is a video clip depicting the assassination of the president of the United States. That's the mentality, that's the ideology, that's the policy of the Iranian regime.
The hope there is that you'll even set off somebody that's insane, and you'll be removed from them. They'll go do the dirty work for you. I mean, it's hard to tell when these happen how many are directed and how many are instigated. But given the fact that we have, unfortunately, our fair share of unhinged people, just putting that on the website could be very lucky for you, because you'll get some nut that will go carry it out for you.
Exactly. There have been many cases like that. What the Iran regime wants to do, they want to make sure that if a terror attack takes place, that people understand that it came from Tehran, but don't hold them accountable. So they don't want traces left, but they want them to know that it's them. So they would be scared of the mullahs. They would give them concessions. This terrorist that was arrested in Belgium because of that terror plot in Paris.
They don't give his name. They describe him as Ali S.
Ali S. Yes, that's from supposedly a Danish national, but it seems to me that the first name that certainly could qualify as an Iranian.
And they say it was being directed by the Quds Force.
Yes, definitely the Quds Force has been involved in a whole host of these terror plots. The Quds Force, whose job and responsibility, the whole infrastructure is built to carry out terror operations, working hand in hand with the so-called diplomats. These smiling diplomats who try to look innocent, they are all part and parcel of the terrorism of the Iran regime. And we need to understand that this regime is so desperate right now, and they feel that they are at their weakest point. And I think that should bring people to this conclusion that so long as you have the mullahs in power in Tehran, you're going to be facing their terror plot. And the only sure way to end that terror plot is to end the rule of the clerics, of course, by the people of Iran and the organized resistance.
Someone I was talking to, probably this was sort of semi-confidential information, was emphasizing to me that if you get rid of the Ayatollah, you got to get rid of his son too. That his son is very dangerous. I always thought of his son as sort of a ne'er-do-well, not a. Is he a big player? He was actually emphasizing the fact that if you take him out, you got to make sure you take out the son and some of his high command. Otherwise, they'll try to make him a martyr.
I don't think the people of Iran have any respect for any of these clerics.
That's what I thought.
Nobody is going to be viewed as a martyr.
A lot of people in America wouldn't realize that. It looks from here, from America, given the way Iran or the regime is covered almost in a favorable way. It seems as if they have total control, and that's hardly true, right?
The mullahs have lost a lot of the clout and power. Even Supreme Leader Khamenei has lost a lot of the support or respect among the other clerics who, until recently, were pretty supportive of the regime. So he's so isolated, not just among the people of Iran, where the vast majority of the people are opposed to it, but among the clerics. Interestingly,
why is that? What was the proximate cause of that?
Well, because they feel when you get weak, people start moving away. Okay, this regime is so weak,
and particularly a regime like that
right
is oppressive to everyone, even people on their side.
Even people among the clerics. I mean, unless you're 100% endorsing Khamenei, you're not allowed to speak up, and they have seen the things on the ground. And remember, in 1988, when there was a huge mass killing on a fatwa, or a religious decree issued by then Supreme Leader Khomeini, the number 2 cleric, who was the successor designate, a senior Ayatollah, dissented. And he said, we can't do that. We can't kill the MEK people, none of whom were sentenced to death without any excuse or justification. So this is the kind of a history that exists there. Well, he was sacked and then, sidelined and house arrest, and eventually he died. So I think that tells you that there is no real successor to Khamenei, whether his son or others. Number one. Second, the whole society, with or without Khamenei, is so explosive. We are talking about a society that the economy is in shambles, and nothing is working for the mullahs. We have a rich country, second largest oil and gas reserves of the world are now in Iran, yet 80% of the population live below the poverty line. People see the regime responsible for the economic, disaster. Politically speaking, corruption is so systematic. Everything goes to the pocket of the Revolutionary Guards and the clerics. So nothing is really going to work and help the regime.
So how would you describe the possibility of an attack here, given all this turmoil that's going on and the things that are coming up? And I keep thinking we went through 4 years of completely being. I describe it as the country was raped. People came in and we have no idea who they are. Large numbers, in the millions, came in, and we literally don't know their names. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they came from. If you're running a regime like Iran, if you don't take advantage of that, you're really stupid. I mean, Biden opens the doors. You can all come in. This is my time to get some of my worst people in there. people that I might have trouble getting in, even if there's some minimal. There was nothing. There was nothing. I mean, literally, we were helping. We were using federal law enforcement as an escort service for the illegals. They were helping them across the border instead of preventing them from coming in. Now, if you're sitting there and you're the Quds Force, you say to yourself, this is my chance to get some of my worst people in there if I want to pull off an attack. They're going to help them in, help to get them in. I think we did that with China too.
Right. Mayor, political environment is so important for the advancement of terrorism. When you have a policy of appeasement towards a regime that is the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, inadvertently even, you're opening doors to their influence, their operations, sneaking in their own people. If you just give out, green cards to people, and also opening gates and doors open to those who want to appease the regime or build contact with the Revolutionary Guards. The regime is so sophisticated. A lot of times they sneak in their own people who don't look like agents of Tehran. A lot of them are in suit and ties, posing as academics or people who were with the Revolutionary Guards are no longer like that. And the regime has used amazingly a lot of people who, at the end of the day, benefit the regime and open doors for that. For instance, the remnants of the Shah's dictatorship, the monarchy, are now constantly talking about reaching out to the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, the IRGC, who are actually designated as terrorists, the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, saying we want to recruit them, we want to get them on our side, and sending out the son of the Shah, sending out applications, asking them to fill your names, and so we can work with you, we can collaborate with you, ensuring your future. I mean, not only this is maybe very ridiculous when it comes to change in Iran, but I think from terrorism perspective, you have to be very careful where you open doors under different circumstances to the IRGC, the Ministry of Intelligence, the people who have been working for the regime, whose agenda is to destroy not only the people of Iran, but to destroy the United States, to destroy any countries. As of today, the main slogan at the Friday prayers done by the regime is death to America, death to Israel, death to the MEK, which is the Iranian opposition. So that's why I think it's so important to draw very clear lines saying absolutely under no circumstances, no connections, no contacts by anybody who's associated with the regime, the IRGC, the Quds Force, or others can be justified under no circumstances.
You follow that rule and throwing people out of the organization and not having any contact with them. And it's the only way to protect yourself against infiltration.
Absolutely.
Because they are very cunning and they're very good. And aside from China, they've probably done the best job of infiltrating our country, including our media. For a regime like that to get kind of fair coverage is insane. It's insane. And they do. They're given the benefit of every doubt.
Under the previous administrations, when the policy was a policy of appeasement, they opened doors to a lot of these people who acted as, academics, people who eventually ended up working at the U.S. government, part of the nuclear negotiating team, people who were being, going to Tehran, getting, briefed by them, giving them orders, like, a woman who was working at the State Department and the DOD. And now this regime is so sophisticated and they use different colors, the covers. That's why it's so important to make it a very clear and a policy that anyone who has any kind of association, contact, or promotion of the Revolutionary Guards, the IRGC, this is against the U.S. law, and they need to be held accountable. It doesn't matter how they look like. It doesn't matter how much they talk against the regime. It doesn't matter if they're in suit and tie or claim that they're crown prince of this and that. It doesn't matter. You need to keep the focus on the threat.
Ted, can you put up this little shot that I have of Ali Reza here doing a briefing? It says February 2nd, 2025. And it was when you revealed intelligence on Iran's nuclear warhead development. And then right before right before right before the attack, the Israeli attack, about two days before, you also had another revelation about the Semnan desert.
Right.
On the screen now, if you want to explain it while I get this.
Right.
So this was in Washington. You can see
Right.
it.
This was actually in Washington. We had 4 major press conferences just since December of 2024. We had one in December, one January, one May, and the one in June. And basically talking about that the nuclear weapons program of the regime has now a different form and shape. Because the original plan for building the bomb, known as the Ahmad plan, which many people thought it was put aside, it was shelved after we exposed that plan in 2003, and especially exposing the heart of it, the headquarters of that, known as Labizan-Shian. People thought, okay, that's over. But our recent intelligence and information showed that not only that plan wasn't over, but they actually revived it under a different name, different, much more expansive and more enhanced, known as the Kabir plan. Kabir means desert. And the map that you had there was actually the map that the map of Semnan, that which is the desert area. That some of those sites that were mentioned there, and
right now.
exactly. And so, Mayor, we have a history dating back to actually the 1990s, when the regime was trying to build a nuclear bomb from the former Soviet Republic of Kazakhstan. And then we talked about in the 2002, the nuclear facility, Natanz, the uranium enrichment facility. We first exposed it, and that triggered the IAEA inspections of Iranian nuclear sites and a whole host of other sites. We've exposed Fardo underground facility in December of 2005. And unfortunately, the policy of the West was not to, abandon or, close down these sites to the country. The policy was to reach out to the regime and give them what they want, get into negotiations. First, it was Europeans, and then it was the Obama-Biden team that led to the JCPOA. They legitimized the entire program. They legitimized having the centrifuges underground in Fardo. They legitimized having all of these sites, doing a lot of research and development. The regime, defied the IAEA, but it was never held accountable. They just expelled the IAEA inspectors. They never responded to the specific questions dealing with the weaponization. And this is where we are.
But the IAEA revealed that.
Exactly, and they had a big report just last month saying
they
that
they waited a lot of time to reveal it.
Yes, and so that's why I think it's so important to understand that, if you leave it to the Ayatollahs, you come into terms and negotiate, this will never happen. They will just buy time so that they can, move the program forward in order to actually get the bomb, because the bomb is actually crucial for the mullahs. It's the guarantee for their survival. You need to deny that. And that's why we, as the Iranian opposition, got involved. We see it a very patriotic, nationalistic responsibility for us to deny the Iran regime from getting the bomb.
Many of the commentators said that when we did the major hit on Iran and took out a lot of the nuclear facilities, that the thinking among the regime people was, if we had the bomb, they wouldn't have done this. If we were already nuclear, America would have been deterred from doing this. So, if anything, no matter what they're saying, there's even more of an impetus, I think, now to try to get there.
Definitely,
no matter what they're saying to us, they've got to be trying somewhere, somehow, to become nuclear, because I think they believe that's their only defense.
If you are a regime that have no faith in your people, you're not built to improve the living conditions of your nation, to spend the money for helping your own people, then the only path left, as the mullahs in Tehran, is to engage in terrorism, frighten the rest of the world, and stay in power by killing your own people, and at the same time threatening the other nations. That's why they had these proxies that they created or funded and trained. That's why the nuclear weapons program has become a key component, central element for keeping the regime in power. That's why the regime, the nuclear program has cost the regime $2 trillion so far. That's a lot of money, Mayor. The whole revenue.
A lot of it last week went down the drain.
Yeah, all of it's gone. The regime's oil revenue since the mullahs came to power, we counted based on the OPEC numbers, was close to $1.5 trillion. So more than all the money they got from oil, they have spent on their nuclear program. Why would you want to do that if it doesn't even produce even 1% of the power that the country needs?
Right.
So this is all about building the bomb. This is all about the survival of the regime. And that's why it's so important to focus on the solution. And the solution, obviously, is not appeasement. Certainly, appeasement has gotten us to here. And the solution is not foreign war, because at the end of the day, this regime has to be changed by the people of Iran on the ground, as the experience of Syria showed. And that's why the regime is singularly focused on the MEK, which is the first movement, the same movement that exposed the nuclear sites, but is actually behind the protests. They act as the engine for change. They're part of a larger coalition of the National Council of Resistance of Iran that says, we're not going to go back to the previous dictatorship of the Shah, which was a single party rule, very corrupt. They had the secret police Savak killing people, and we're not going to settle for this regime or any part of this regime. The future belongs to democracy, political pluralism, separation of religion and state, gender equality, peace in the Middle East, and a non-nuclear republic Iran. And these are actually principles of the 10-point plan of Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, who is the president-elect of the NCRI. And that plan has tremendous support in the U.S. Congress in a bipartisan way, in the Senate, in the House, and some 4,000 parliamentarians in Europe. So the U.S. should really, what they should do is to rely on those resistance units on the ground, recognizing their legitimacy of fight against the IRGC.
Well, we'll keep on top of this. I think more and more things are going to emerge every day. And we'll have to see as we go through the 4th of July weekend, if there's any opportunity, they take any opportunity to kind of use that as a symbolic period of time. And I do think the only good news is that law enforcement in America is very much on alert for it right now. It would not be a surprise attack. So that always helps. Believe it or not, I mean, sometimes when people publicize these things, there's a worry that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. What it really does is it's like ringing the bell of law enforcement. When they see predictions that there might be a terrorist attack, they start to become much more vigilant. It's when we're not thinking about it and we're not being vigilant that we get hit. So let's hope. Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
You are a legend. Yeah.
U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax, channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost. cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly, where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code Rudy. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. Oh, this is Rudy Giuliani giving a lecture on the morale of law enforcement agents. As I said, I was at Homeland Security today, and I am truly, I don't know if I would say surprised at how quickly it all turned around, particularly the invasion of the United States. I mean, even last year when the Biden administration tried everything they could to cut down illegal immigration, they had what would have been a record year except for them. What I'm saying is that their last year, where they got it down to 1 million something, is higher than any other president in American history. Their worst year was 3.5 million that we know about. I mean, when Donald Trump left office, it was 400,000. And in Biden's worst year was 3.5 million. And now the number is closer to zero. And I attribute that, of course, to the president and his leadership, but to something I knew would happen, but not this quickly. And that is, you restore the morale of law enforcement agencies, and they're going to do miracles. They're going to do miracles. Despite all of the left-wing propaganda and all of the racist propaganda about the police, going back to way before the Floyd situation, by and large, the police in this country and law enforcement, meaning the federal police, the people who go into enforcing the law and protecting us, they're mostly idealists. I had four uncles and 2 cousins that were police officers, and so I grew up in the atmosphere. I know what they're like. I know what they think about, and they're, by and large, they're people who want to protect. Of course, there are ones that are aberrations. Of course, in any human grouping, whether they're monks or just a gang, they're going to be the really bad. I mean, even in the mafia, there were worse ones and better ones, and ones that were really, really unbelievable murders, and some who did it because they had to. But in the case of the police, they're, by and large, I found, they're extremely, extremely good people. And of course, there are some times when they act improperly, but most of the times, believe it or not, they're being falsely charged. It's become almost a part of the criminal defense process. If you consider that most of the people that are arrested are guilty, because it'd be ridiculous to arrest people that weren't. There are so many that are. You don't have a defense. Maybe you're on video committing the crime. So you go after the police. It's part of the process of defending yourself. You allege that the police brutalized you. I mean, people have gone so far as to cut themselves and say the police did it. because they don't want to go to jail. People will do a lot of things not to go to jail. So what I'm trying to say is that the police, whenever these stories come out about police brutality, the first thing I did it as mayor, and I do it as a citizen, and I do it as a reporter. Just wait a few days, because probably 4 out of 5 times it's going to turn out there was a justification completely for what the police officer did, or much more of a justification than was presented to you originally, because the entire media is against them. I don't know why. It's perverse. I mean, I grew up with the policeman as your friend, and you can go to him and ask him for help, and he's going to protect you. And every once in a while, in every neighborhood, there was some cop who was a little out of control. But that was the exception. And I think that what they did to the group of law enforcement officers that protect us against illegal aliens, in some cases, these illegal aliens are the worst criminals you're going to find. Look at the kinds of crimes they commit. Sort of a heavy emphasis on perversion, too. These people were vilified. How often have you heard one of the Democrat, even non-crazy racists, say that ICE should be abolished, or that ICE agents are Nazis, or that ICE agents are racist? Most people don't even know who the ICE agents are. And there's no basis for that. Absolutely none. There's not a whole bunch of proof that they're acting anything other than carrying out the laws that were passed by the United States Congress, which the elected Democrat officials, maybe in half the Democratic cities, are violating. I never understood when Sanctuary City moved into very, very quietly, but very uniformly. It moved into we're gonna have a couple of humane rules about these people that are here. We're not going to cooperate with federal law enforcement. You know, there's a law in New York so that a police officer would break the law if he notified the immigration authorities about an illegal person in jail. There's a law. There's a law that obstructs federal law enforcement. I do not understand why the people who passed that law weren't put in jail. You can't pass a law to obstruct justice. Suppose you passed a law saying people were prohibited from reporting crimes to the police department. I mean, whoever voted for that, you take them and put them in the nut house, right? Well, that's one of those is running for mayor of New York. It's to me, it's beyond comprehension. So I have to, Ted, I've got to get you involved in this. Ted, I want an answer because it's bothering me. What caused the new breakout of the Trump-Musk wrestling match? I thought it was over, and then all of a sudden, Musk said something, and the president said something, and Musk said something else, and now the president's talking about deporting him.
Right. I mean, look. So what actually caused it? I mean, look. You got two alphas, right? Two very, very strong individuals.
All in capital letters.
All in capital letters, going at it. Look, I'm sure the president.
You and I knew. You and I.
We saw this coming
privately.
Yeah.
Knew that this was coming.
Yeah.
Right.
We didn't know the date.
But faster than we thought.
Faster than we thought, but not if you look at the special term period of his government service.
got,
then it kind of lines up.
I got a little diverted from that around after he got elected around Christmas time. And Musk's family was at with his family for.
He said hi to you, yeah.
Yeah, and he had his kid with him, and it seemed like a personal relationship was developing.
Yeah,
and I really feel bad about this because, of course, I'm much closer to the president, and my loyalties are going to be with him, but. I do credit Musk with almost saving the First Amendment in this country. I think he took X at exactly the right. I mean, there was almost nothing left.
Right. We started the show.
I was thrown off YouTube twice.
Yeah.
The first time I was thrown off YouTube, right after a day in which I had an audience of about 1.3 million. I mean, I was out of my mind to have 1.3 million people. Gosh almighty. And I was making, I think, about $20,000 a month, $30,000 a month. I didn't even know you got money. They would just send it to me. And then they threw me off, and I can't remember. I mean, I got thrown off for several things. I can't remember if it may have been over there covering up the Hunter Biden hard drive. It may have been that originally got me thrown off. Then I got thrown off over January 6th when I said it was a setup. Now I knew from the night of the event, whatever the hell it was, that it was a setup, because these two women, one of whom infiltrated Antifa, brought me a video and a group of emails that proved it, which have been covered up. Some of them have been destroyed, but I kept copies of them. I've shown them to you. So from the very beginning, I knew it was a setup. And from the very beginning, I was shocked at the video that I saw of the killing of Ashley Babbitt. And I was so naive that I said to my Bernie Carrick, who just lost, and Dr. Maria, who were working with me on this, let's bring this evidence about Ashley Babbitt to the U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia. I know U.S. attorneys, and he may be kind of funny, but murder is different. Even crooked DAs pursue murder, right? Not this one. They never investigated it. There were two guys that are smashing down the door. Those are the two people that if you panicked and lost a sense of what was going on, which had to happen if you shot in this situation, those are the people you shoot. Not this woman all the way over there who doesn't have any arms. These guys have big boulders. I mean, they could whack you in the head and kill you. And they're being aggressive. She's being kind of like, look like she was being held up there. So he avoids target one that's aggressive. He avoids target two that's aggressive. And he goes right for somebody that would be hard for him to see if he didn't know she's going to be placed there. And then he shoots and kills her. And so I've had to deal with a lot of police shootings, right? The standard is the following. Are you in legitimate, reasonable fear for your life? That's your defense. He had no fear for his life. There were 8 cops within grabbing distance of her, about 4 of them dressed up like SS officers with machine guns. And on his side, there were about another 8 cops that could have helped him subdue her after she fell down. There was no reason to shoot her. Absolutely none in the world. The guy would have to have panicked like almost a psychiatric incident. And finally, I happened to read his grand jury testimony, which I got. And the U.S. attorney, assistant U.S. attorney, didn't ask him the magic question. Didn't bother, were you in fear for your life, and give me the grounds for it. Never asked him that. He never put it in a defense, which means he should have been indicted, if not for first-degree murder, certainly for negligent homicide. I mean, a cop in New York would have been indicted. Now, let's get truthful about it. If she were black and he were white, they'd be holding Sharpton would be holding protests to put the guy in jail without a trial. It would have been a major incident all over the country. No articulable reason to shoot her, and you do it when there were 2 people right in front of you that could have done damage to you. But this is what we're trying to unwind ourselves from. And you don't just do it by a magic wand. So this is really a plea to my good friends at Justice, who are doing a great job of cleaning it up, and at the FBI. I don't know what you're doing privately, but you got to be investigating this. Don't do the, oh, you're just being vindictive, and that's a dodge. That's a mind. That's a screwing up of your mind. What you're doing is you're enforcing the law, which they didn't do. You're not doing what they did. What they did is to frame people, including me and Dr. Eastman and the president and Mark Meadows, and I can go on and on. They accused us of crimes, number one, that weren't committed, and things that aren't even crimes, like representing my client. What I did for Donald Trump, I've done for 100 people. I stated the defenses that he had. And I'm supposed to give him the benefit of the doubt. You give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt, they put you in jail. So this is a plea. Investigate it. Bring some of these people to justice and let the American people know the whole story. Because if they know the whole story, they're going to be shocked. And there's a good chance it won't happen again. Not for a very long time. If you're just kind of afraid of the repercussions of doing this and you kind of cover it up, particularly if they get back in power quickly, they won't have missed a beat. I mean, should they be back in power in 3 years, it's going to be all the same. I mean, some of us probably should go to the moon. I mean, they're going to come and arrest us the day they get in power. They don't have any of these restraints about, gee, it'll look bad if we did it, because it doesn't look bad, because they own the press. It's a different set of rules. So I am a little bit, I guess, maybe I just don't know enough. I'm a little anxious because I don't see what I think I would see if that were being pursued, not aggressively, but correctly. I think I'd have a feeling it was going on. The way I have a feeling, for example, that something's going to happen with Iran. There's just too much. Britain, France, Germany, Denmark, United States. It's like in the lead up to the attack on Iran. At first, it looked like just the usual chatter. And remember, I came on and I said there's like 3 times more chatter now. And that doesn't say anything other than this could happen. It's starting to look like it could happen. Well, this is starting to look like it could happen. Iran using terrorist action. After all, they put billions of dollars into terrorist organizations. So they might as well make use of them, right, for their perverse purposes. So I have a great deal of empathy for all the people in law enforcement right now, because I did that work, but with a great deal more intelligence than they had. I don't mean intelligence, I mean information. I always had a pretty good feel for how much Russian infiltration there was. Maybe not as good as Chinese infiltration. They covered it up better, but I still had a pretty good feel for it. And I had a very good feel for who we could turn in different organizations. And we had people everywhere. Now I wouldn't even know how to categorize. I mean, there is an incredibly large group of people that came into this country during the Biden invasion that we haven't even thought about. The people who came in the gaps. So I'll get my map out. Maybe I'll bring it out tomorrow night when we get back. All right. I did this map a long time ago for President Bush, and it shows the gaps in the border where if you have knowledge of the border, you can bring anybody in, and they're not going to get there in time. Just 50 miles of wide open space. And it used to be, when we were more honest about this, that we would study that. And it was studied by MIT, Harvard, the University of Pennsylvania, several others. And they did calculations of, if you have X number of known illegals, what's the number of unknown illegals that would produce? Meaning, while the Border Patrol are tied up with the illegals coming in, how many are coming in without anybody knowing about it because the cartels are taking advantage of that. That's where they make their big money. So if I'm Xi Jinping and I want to get in 5 or 6 of my best operatives into the United States, I don't put them into a sort of a crapshoot. I go pay the cartels a couple $1 million and they'll take them over, in a bush 50 miles from this checkpoint and 25 miles from that checkpoint. And they will check it out for 5 straight nights. So there's no problem. And that guy will get in. And we'll never know he came in. I think a lot of the fentanyl came in that way. They weren't going to risk losing the investment. Now, here's another thing that they just did away with, all the academics. One of the things that would be guidance when I ran this was the more activity that goes on at the legal checkpoints, the easier it is to get people in at the unobserved areas in between. Makes sense, right? We're all tied up. Now they know they can get more in. Or they do a big day. Remember there were a couple of days like in Texas where we had like 10,000 in a day. I'm going to tell you that's a day in which the Sinaloa cartel was bringing in high value illegal aliens, the ones they get paid the millions of dollars for, the ones who want to overthrow the United States, the ones who are the major drug dealers, and the ones who set up the biggest human trafficking rings in the whole world. The United States was never a big human trafficking country. We're now the leading country in the world that engages in the modern version of slavery. And this has to be all undone. And it's got to be undone in 4 years because maybe they'll be back in 4 years. Maybe in 2 years if we get a Congress that's intent on, you look at this guy Jeffries, I mean, he looks like a dumb version of Pelosi. I mean, they'll start they're already talking about impeachment. They're talking about impeachment for having carried out probably one of the most successful and sensible American military actions in our history. And that's all for the defense of the United States. What possible motive do you have for taking out the Iranian nuclear facilities? And they want to impeach him. So this has got to get done. And I think, here's the good side of that. I think that's what creates the exceptional performance. The president feels under great pressure to get this done. Everything I'm telling you, he knows, and he probably knows it better. And he feels it. He feels, I just got, if I don't get it done now, the hell with them criticizing me, and the hell with them suing me, and the hell with them impeaching me. If I don't get it done now, when is it going to get done? And he's infused that in his administration. I mean, you can see it sure, at Homeland, but it's all over the administration. And it makes it probably one of the most exceptional periods of time in American history. I remember the Reagan Revolution. I remember being here when Ronald Reagan gave his first inaugural address. And I didn't think it could be any more exciting that we were going to turn America around. But the stakes weren't anywhere near as high, nor was it as difficult now that I look back on it. Because there still were a hell of a lot of Democrats that loved America. And you could find a basis on which, particularly a guy with the goodwill of Ronald Reagan, you could find a basis on which to negotiate with him. And I did too. I don't know where they are now. I don't know what happened to them. What I see, and I know, some people will just dismiss this as partisan. All I see on the other side is kind of a hatred for America. And they want to make decisions that kind of change our culture and our civilization. Now, how can you negotiate with them? What are you negotiating? Or there isn't a single one of them that agrees with the tax legislation, and they know if we don't pass that, America is going to get economically ruined if we had a major tax increase right now. They know that. There's got to be at least a third of those Democrats that understand that the bill that's there is a great example of American democracy, which is you can't have all your own way. That there's something in it to get the votes that you need to get it done. That's what democracy is about. A third of them would naturally vote for it, but they're not going to do it because they don't want to give Donald Trump a victory. He happens to be the president, and if you don't give him a victory and you defeat him, you defeat America, right? But that America doesn't, they don't care about America anymore. I knew Democrats that believed what I just said. I knew Republicans who believed that during a Democrat administration. I believed that during Democrat administration. I supported some of Clinton's legislation when I was mayor. I got along with him because I had to. Well, Ted,
Mayor?
China, according to the Wall Street Journal, China is, here's the article. And I want to tell you, I want to do this because we all have to become educated on how to read for ourselves, because there's so much brainwashing going on, including the wonderful Wall Street Journal, which I respect, but I also think there's some kind of evil demon here who screws around with some of these articles. So here's an article that says that China is catching us on AI, and that several countries are turning to them for AI. Okay?
Right.
However, here's the difference between using OpenAI's Chat GPT, which is American.
Yep, I use that.
And their two, including the one that, here's the difference. This is with China catching up to us.
Yeah.
There were, I'm looking for the period of time here. I think this may be in a month. There were 910 million global downloads of the American provider and 125 million of the Chinese provider. Now, if that's catching us, catch us. 9-1.
Right.
And this is where DeepSeek got amazing publicity.
Yeah.
Much of which many of the experts said was fraudulent, that they don't have anywhere near the capacity that they claim to have. But even with that, and that's sinking in, and 5 months later, we're still ahead 9-1.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that we should let our guard down. But I think this is one of the areas where President Trump came along just at the right time. This would have happened if we had elected bumbling Kamala Bamala. They would have caught us in a year. But remember, the first thing he did when he came into office is go ahead and make sure that we had independent access to, I call them the super chips, the ones that are made in Taiwan that are the basis for AI. You can't do AI with the normal chip that you'd have in your iPad or your iPod or your other devices. These are extraordinarily sophisticated, very, very, very almost technically impossible to consider. They contain so much in just a little area. But that's the key to winning the AI war, to stay ahead on the technology. And it is true we were falling behind, but we aren't behind. And since Trump came into office, we've reestablished ourselves, and we're beginning to now show distance. But nobody reports that.
Mm-hmm. Of course not.
But okay, I'll take that because maybe it'll make people work out.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe it'll make them work harder.
Mm-hmm.
But also maybe some positive encouragement for people who've been working 24 hours a day to make sure that China doesn't catch up on us. And this is something that President Trump understands 100%, And if I tried to explain this to Joe Biden, he would put ice cream all over his face. And then the Democrats, I don't know honestly, I don't know what side they're on. I don't know if they're working for us, or they're working for China, or they're working for Karl Marx, or they're working for the people who want to mutilate your children, or the ideas, the ideas that they propound are evil. And either the party, there are people who are Democrats who argue them, and then the others remain silent. So you get the guy running for mayor in New York saying that the police are racist, and the police are evil, and the police are cruel. So he says that, and nobody in the Democrat Party disagrees with him. Now, if some Republicans said that, we would be required to disagree with him. Every press idiot in this city in New York would come up to me or anybody else and say, do you agree with David Duke? Remember David Duke? We had to separate ourselves from David Duke, and we should have. But they don't have to separate themselves from a guy who's probably worse than David Duke. A guy like Jeffries can go on television and say, well, I never talked to him. The guy is just in the next district. He's a Democrat like you are. Maybe I never talked to him, but you never talked to him. And don't you just by instinct support other Democrats? There must be something really wrong with them if you're not supporting him. But you're not willing to speak up. You know, all that it takes for dictators to prevail and deprive us of human freedom and to slaughter us is for good men to say nothing. I think that was one of the great theologians, Protestant theologians, about Hitler. All you need is evil keeps triumphing, and the good people, are they good people? Are afraid. Sound like the Democrat Party? Sound like Chuck Schumer on Israel? Here's a guy who's Jewish, been a big supporter of Israel. And he tries to interfere in the election and get Bibi Netanyahu defeated, which is illegal, by the way. We'll never speak out against these people who say vile things about the Jewish people that offend me. He's afraid. He's afraid they'll take his leadership away. Gee, the best thing for America would be if they took his leadership away and we put him somewhere where he belonged, which is not the Congress. And I know him for years. I did not expect very great things from him, but I never expected he would turn on his own people. To me, I can't even look at him. I can't look at him. I know where he came from, and I know what he used to believe, and I know how, with his sick desire for power, and possibly money, he'll sell out his own people. The Democratic Party is filled with people like that. They got to clean themselves up. They really do. I really think they should be a movement to change the name of the party, because it's a party of slavery. They're going to go take down statues of people who had a certain number of slaves. The organization that promoted slavery nationwide caused a war over it. We shouldn't be using that name if we're intellectually honest, right? But we do. So I don't know if you saw this, Ted, but Governor DeSantis, who I know you love, gave a speech saying to the new people coming to Florida, don't bring your politics here, because there was a complaint in Texas that the people coming from California, and maybe even Arizona, were kind of moving it to the left. But what's happening in Florida, and there was a very good, as a result of DeSantis' speech, they did an analysis, and the migration is part of what has made Florida now from a swing state to a lean red state to almost a solid, completely 100% red state. These new people are all voting Republican
Right.
because, and it makes sense, right? They know what they fled. They know they fled. More than half my salary goes to the government, or no matter what I say, they're going to teach my kids that he or she should doubt their gender.
Right.
They know they fled that, and they're not bringing it with them, unlike the fools from Hollywood, right?
Right.
So I was glad that DeSantis gave that speech. I was glad they did that study.
We got some video up now. That's the president.
Well, they look like they buried the hatchet completely,
Secretary Noem.
and they should.
Yeah, for the greater good, right?
They should. They stand for the same thing. They really do. There's you see that little room between them? That doesn't even exist ideologically. I mean, they're both they're
different styles. And
absolutely different styles.
Might be unfair
and,
for the governor, but
yeah,
his style may not be as
and he's been a really good. We live
a
there
great
now.
great governor,
a very good governor.
Great governor.
I mean, compared to Hokel Pokel Yokel.
Right. Look, I'd feel very safe if Ron DeSantis were
Well,
president of the United States. Oh my goodness.
From Michigan.
I try to avoid Michigan. I love Michigan, but I avoid
Governor Whitlis.
I try to avoid it like the plague. We got that's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, look, New York, Michigan, New Jersey, California.
New Jersey. Oh my God. Murphy. I remember when we were involved in the election a couple of years ago when we concluded that Murphy was the worst. You talk about Hochul and Whitlis and Newsom. We concluded that Murphy was by far the worst governor in America.
Yeah, we did go with Murphy, which I mean that's a tough.
remember,
he had some good competition, of course.
He had good competition, but he was losing more people than anybody else. He was losing then more people than New York or California.
Right.
That's a pretty good indication if the governor's driving people out of his state that he isn't a good governor. I mean, you're supposed to win friends and influence people, not scare the shit out of them.
I remember coming down to Florida during COVID, right? And it was heads and tails.
Oh my God!
I forgot what it was. Yeah, I felt like, wow, this is what normal life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even. It was just normal. It wasn't like anything extra. It was like, wow.
If you put your mask down a little bit because your glasses were fogging up.
Oh gosh!
They start telling you you're killing people.
The mask rules in restaurants and on airplanes where you could take it off to eat, but it's like, oh, what? COVID just.
I remember.
COVID takes a break when you got to eat.
I remember being in restaurants with people.
It's like absurd.
And
right?
I knew because of Dr. Maria, they were completely useless. The masks they were wearing are completely useless. And the ones for children were counterproductive.
Right. Yes.
If you just use a little common sense, immediately I thought this. I didn't even need an expert about it. They put masks on little kids. I said, first of all, you're going to scare the hell out of them.
Right.
You're going to make them little introverts.
Yes.
Second, kids sniffle all the time. And they're supposed to clean it, not re-inhale it, which is what happens if you put a mask on their face.
Oh, especially they started making these more permanent cloth masks.
There's absolutely no reason in the world other than to make China rich. Yeah. Because they went out and 6 months before they bought up just about all the masks in the world. And
imagine
all that propaganda about wearing masks and people buying millions of masks made China $1 billion, billions of dollars.
And what does it do to a child's psychology? I'm thinking of the multiple years in school, in classrooms where all the kids' faces are covered. I'm thinking when you're very little, right? And this is a question for Dr. Maria. How does that impact a child's psychology with multiple years where they see everyone around them with masks? Like I'm sure over the years there'll be some sort of study.
I thought from the very beginning, I thought that was completely stupid.
It's bizarre. And these are the 4-year-olds are the healthiest. I'm not a doctor. Talk to Dr. Maria, but it seems like young kids are as healthy. They're durable.
I also thought locking everybody in was stupid. And I thought nobody was paying attention to the fact that we have a significant number of depressed people.
Right.
More than usual. You see those studies all the time.
Right.
Now, you take a depressed person and you lock him up. There's a better chance he's going to die of just deteriorating than of COVID.
Domestic violence was up, alcoholism, drug use, suicide across the board. It was just
lock somebody in, and that's what you're going to do.
And DC, you were up in New York.
Instead of take your chances with people getting the disease like I did and developing a natural immunity, which was a hell of a lot better than the vaccine, which turns out to be a phony. You see, the word vaccine means that you don't get the disease. When Jonas Salk invented the polio vaccine, why he was such a great man was nobody got polio after they took the vaccine. This thing, everybody got it afterwards. Probably the people who have taken that vaccine more than anyone else are the corrupt Bidens. How many times have they? I mean, the first stepmother has had it 4 times.
Yeah.
She's probably had about 50 vaccines. I mean, I don't know what you need as proof that this thing is counterproductive. And all of the attacks on Robert Kennedy being anti-vaccine, he's not anti-vaccine. He's anti-vaccine insanity. I'm sorry I didn't ask Andrew, who was here earlier, but my little granddaughter was scheduled for 42 vaccines between the age of 1 day and 18 months for things that she could never contract if she did it all until she was an adult. Well, why? You ask why? Money. It's the most solid moneymaker for a pharmaceutical company because if they can get the government to mandate it, the government will pay for it. Now they don't have to worry about Medicare, Medicaid, the person paying for it. The somebody else coming along with a competitor. Because once you have a vaccine and it works, you're not allowed to develop another one unless something goes wrong with that one. So it's like a cash pit.
Right.
I remember after the first year, man, I wanted to arrest him. The head of one of those companies, the 2 or 3 of them, it wasn't one of the big companies, but they became billionaires, and they had a party on New Year's celebrating the fact that they became billionaires from the vaccine. Now, does that tell you their motivation? And people were still dying, and they're having a big party because they became billionaires with a vaccine, which is in and of itself false advertising by calling it a vaccine. And then Numbskull, the president, was coming on television saying, if you don't get the vaccine, you're killing people.
I remember. Oh my goodness, Mayor.
That's at the core. That's at the core of this political party. And it needs to be excised like cancer, taken out, because we desperately need a second party. We need a loyal opposition, whether it's us or them. But put the emphasis on the word loyal. When I was mayor, I didn't doubt the loyalty. I doubted the ideology of Democrats, but I didn't doubt their loyalty. I thought they'd reach different conclusions to reach the same goal, and they did. Now they reach different conclusions to reach a goal to destroy our culture, our law, our civilization. The things they espouse are insane. And because they do it and the press just acts like it's normal, a lot of people miss it. The guy nominated in New York is not normal. The president of the United States was absolutely right the other night when there was I know him really well. There's an expression on his face. I saw it on Air Force One was being interviewed, but he doesn't believe it. He's like convincing himself, well, he's a communist. Well, yeah, he actually is. It's like he said it, and then he realized he was telling the truth, right? Because it's so unthinkable that a person like that would be. The guy is an enemy of capitalism. New York City only exists because of capitalism. From the day it began as a Dutch trading post, if New York City is anything, it's a mercantile city. That's how Wall Street was started by the Dutch, not even the English, because it was all about money. It was all about the French and I can't say what we used to call them, but the Native Americans, right? Coming down from Canada with the furs, and the wonderful Hudson River was there, which was like an express train. You just come right down. Now, the Port of New York is a natural gift of God. It can up until the latest aircraft carriers, major aircraft carriers could come right up on the shore, right there, right next to because it's so deep. So these people could come down. They didn't have to even get out of their canoe. They just stood there. they handed the Dutch the pelts, and the Dutch gave them whatever, food, clothes, money. And then in order to keep out people that might invade to try to steal those things, they built a wall so that only the legitimate traders could come in. That's Wall Street. That's Wall Street. That's how Wall Street started. So different parts of America have different history. Boston, a little different than New York. New York's history is all business, capitalism, trading. And then when the English took over from the Dutch, they continued it as a trading city. It's America's economic capital. A mayor who's anti-capitalism, anti-Adam Smith, pro-Karl Marx, is a disaster. Anywhere. In New York, it's like annihilation of the secret that made New York great. When he says things like the city will have its own grocery stores and shopping marts, that's insanity for New York. There'd never be in New York if that's the political and economic philosophy we had. New York would be like Moscow. You think Moscow is the vital city New York is? Well, go to Moscow sometime, and if you don't shoot yourself after 3 days, you're not normal. And the people are walking around like this because they have a dictator. Somewhere inside themselves, people don't like having a dictator. I'm sorry, it's against our nature, or it's against the way God made us. And that's what's going on in Iran. It's been too much. Even the ones who maybe enthusiastically supported it at the beginning, because the Shah was pretty damn bad, now realize how terrible this is. And that's another thing that Ali Reza brought up that I want to emphasize to you. This idea of going back to the Shah is insane. And I am starting to believe that the regime is behind this because they want to discourage people from, it's got to take a lot of guts to oppose this regime, right? In Iran. I mean, I remember when I was first shown the clips of people holding up in a demonstration in Tehran or some other city in Iran, down with the Ayatollah, or down with Raisi, or they even were holding like pro-Trump things up. I say, but these people are asking for a bullet in the head. They're so desperate, they're asking for a bullet in the head because they want to show people, please understand, this isn't the will of the majority of Iranians. We're actually too smart, too civilized, and too cultured for that. This is not some kind of a third world outpost. And that's the way it's painted by the liberal media. And inside their heart is, at this point, even the ones, as I said, who went along with it, have had enough. I mean, it's pretty hard to find one who has any kind of independent spirit that doesn't have a relative that's been killed by them, or tortured, or put in jail. So they're ready. We just need to, we need to have the finesse of Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and Pope John, who eased us out of communism. They just eased us out of communism. And part of it was because the government owned the grocery stores. Remember, I don't know if you can go back, we may not be as old as I am, but you go back to the end of the Soviet Union, you know what it was about? Not getting food. The government couldn't get enough food in. And they just went crazy. Well, that's what will happen if you elect this communist terrorist supporter as mayor. And we're going to do everything we can for the next, how many months?
4.
To try to save maybe what was and should be the greatest city in the world.
It's the greatest city in the world. 100%.
I mean, there isn't
it
a
still
city,
is.
There is. I used to take surveys of this in order to advertise New York. There is no city in the world that's better known than New York, even Jerusalem. Jerusalem may be like the holiest city. New York is sure not a holy city. Paris, romantic. Rome, historic. Athens, historic. We go on and on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because of the ubiquity of American movies and American media, everybody knows New York. Everybody knows the Brooklyn Bridge. Everybody wants to see it. The Empire State Building.
Statue of Liberty.
Everybody was all upset that the Twin Towers came down. They might not even known it was the result of terrorism. It just came down. How did that happen? New York is a world city. And the presence of the UN assures that it is, right? So you can't possibly find a city that has every country represented in that city. It probably would have been true even if we didn't have the UN.
Right.
But having the UN, for sure.
Right.
So now you have an anti-American, American hater, communist, and terrorist supporter trying to be mayor of the city. What the hell is that telling people?
And Mayor, what does it tell you that he's not even hiding it? I mean, liberals that were of communist and socialist leanings,
they used to deny it.
they'd coach it with some softer language. This guy is openly talking about government-run grocery stores, the redistribution of wealth, countless other just open socialist, communist, an open communist platform, and he's not hiding it.
Can you get from 2 days ago the president on Air Force One, in which he accuses him of being a communist? I want to show you the expression on his face.
Yeah.
I mean, the president, one thing about Donald Trump that's amazing, always has been amazing, but never get credit for it. Here's a guy that is a very, very wealthy guy. It is true, up and down, but he was never not wealthy. Like when Donald Trump had economic problems, he was worth 900 million, not 4 billion. It's not like you and I have economic problems. His real problem is if he dipped below $1 billion. I've known him basically all his adult life. I've known him when they said he was bankrupt, and I would say, I wish I was bankrupt. So this guy has lived in wealth all his life. Now, it is true, his father wasn't wealthy. His father was upper middle class. He was a very successful builder in Queens, who probably was a millionaire at a time in which being a millionaire is different than now, but they weren't like super wealthy. And here's the thing that's really wonderful. They were never pretentious. His father trained him to be a construction worker. So he understood the construction workers who work for them, and he could motivate them to do better work than anybody else, because his father believed that was the way you did better work than anybody else. You didn't cheat them, you motivated them. So that's the way he was trained. Now, isn't it weird? So in 2012, we have a candidate, not Ronald Reagan, my goodness, Romney, who isn't nearly as wealthy as Trump, comes out of a Mormon family with a father who was a governor, and he can't relate to people. I mean, whatever else you think of Mitt Romney, the guy I was with him the first time he campaigned for governor in Massachusetts in an Italian neighborhood, and he was afraid to shake hands with people. You don't do in an Italian neighborhood, you got to hug them. You don't just shake hands. Shaking hands is not enough. And I had to train him to do that. And then you get this guy, Trump, who comes along, who is truly a millionaire, billionaire. And he'll hug anybody. And then he'll sit there and listen to them. And it's legit. He's interested. In fact, you can get him off his schedule if somebody comes in with a sad enough story. He'll listen.
Well, here's the president. This isn't the one. We'll go for the one from Air Force One, but this
I have to take a look at it. I'll see because I interpret his facial expressions.
Right. Here's one from the White House lawn before he went on.
I said there will never be socialism in the United States. Now we have a communist. So I think he's bad news, and I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with him, watching him, because he has to come right to this building to get his money. And don't worry, he's not going to run away with
thinking already.
anything. I think he's frankly, I've heard he's a total nut job. I think the people of New York are crazy. If they go this route, I think they're crazy. We will have a communist for the first time, really, a pure, true communist. He wants to operate the grocery stores, the department stores. What about the people that are there? I think it's crazy.
We're still looking for. I know what you're talking
No,
about.
that's not the one. It has a little bit of it where he goes back over it.
Yeah.
It's like he's almost convincing himself that this is real. But it was on Air Force One where he said it, and you can see he's thinking, is this really happening?
Yeah, we're gonna play it. I do have it. We just gotta find it's a 10-minute clip. So
You got to understand. I mean, this is a city that has become the world's most famous city based on money. An understanding of how to make money. I mean, when I was the mayor, I had like this tremendous pressure on me to make sure that Wall Street was open every day because it cost us $1 trillion if it was closed. And both President Clinton and President Bush made that clear to me. Okay, you only one job, you got to keep Wall Street open. No, I got to keep people safe, and I got to do this, and but for them, I had to do one thing. I had to keep Wall Street open because we take a tremendous hit if it was closed. It's a money city. Other cities have different, but that's what it contributes to America. It disproportionately contributes wealth to America. Senator Moynihan, a Democrat, and I mean, not me. Senator Moynihan started this, but I joined in it. Did an analysis every year of how much money we gave the federal government and how much we got back and how we were cheated. That we were kind of driving the American economy, meaning New York City. And even with all of the favorable payments for Medicare and everything else, we were getting back about a third of what we put up. But that's what but that's its contribution. I mean, it has a lot of problems. It didn't vote for Abraham Lincoln, which I'm embarrassed of. But it makes America wealthy. And the rest of the world feeds off it. They in Uzbekistan, they're not looking at what happens in Florida. I'm sorry, Governor DeSantis. They're looking at what happens in New York, and they're taking conclusions off of that. That's why this is so dangerous. If the conclusion they take is that we've gone communist, they're going to start thinking the whole country has. There's a map, Ted. We got to find it. They don't use it much anymore.
right,
But the map is supposed to be like a New Yorker's perception of America.
right.
So it's all New York, nothing in the middle, and then Los Angeles and Hollywood.
Right.
That is not so much a New Yorker's conception of New York. That's a foreigner's conception of America. So what I'm saying is, if we make this horrible mistake in New York and elect this whack, crazy, dangerous communist, the conclusion is going to be the country's going that way because they don't distinguish New York from they don't understand that big thing in between, which is right now governing America, not New York. New York is the minority at this point. So we're going to have to spend a lot of time on this, and we're going to have to figure out, we can't go down without fighting. We can't go down to a damn terrorist communist without fighting.
Right.
We just can't.
Yeah.
So, Ted, I asked you before, and you never answered me. I need to know the answer, and then I'll get off, and I'll let you go to sleep. And
What sleep? Come on.
Yeah. This
Is when our second wind hits and we never
what
get off.
started the new Trump-Musk
All right.
thing?
Let's see
I
if we can
thought it
hash
was
this out.
over. I love Trump. I like Musk.
Yeah. Look,
They're on the same side. Why give their enemies a chance to, even if they have differences,
Right.
the differences are nothing compared to their agreements.
Look, I would say part of it is how transparent they both seem to be. We know that with President Trump. Elon Musk has appeared to be pretty transparent over the course of the past year in his goals. two extreme alpha males, right? It's I feel like it's bound to happen.
Is the president right? Was Musk in this to preserve all of the benefits he got from the government? We like to think the following. We like to think if somebody's rich enough so they don't think that way.
Right.
But then it can be they became that rich because they think that way.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
100%. Right.
They concentrate on the last penny.
Yes. Which I see that sometimes with certain spending habits, right, of certain people. And it's like, you know what? Sometimes you wonder, well, they could easily just pick that. But how are they? Right. There's a reason they have the money they have. Right.
Yeah, I don't know Musk well enough.
Right.
And he is a bit of an opaque character.
Right.
Like we got to know him a little, but you never felt like.
Right.
You felt like there's something removed.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was.
Right. I think we can all appreciate his style, obviously, with his contributions.
Like I say about George Bush II, right? He'll always be a great president to me because of the way he reacted after 9/11. I'm sorry.
Right.
And the people who say he was hiding it, that's bullshit. He was put there by the Secret Service because they didn't want him killed.
Yeah, that's absurd.
If an American president had been killed on September 11, I don't know what would have happened.
That's exactly.
The Secret Service did exactly what they should do. He did exactly what he should do until he kind of resisted it, probably for political purposes. He said, take me back to Washington.
Right. Political and leadership purposes. Like you did on 9/11, you were on cameras.
I will often hear, oh, you were the only one who was out there and the president was hiding. I hate that.
Right.
That is not at all true. And then the minute he came back, my God, he gave us everything we wanted. I mean, he was so supportive of me and Governor Pataki. I don't think we could have done what we did with a different kind of president.
I'm with you 100%, Mayor. I remember. So
I said in 2004, no matter what else happens, George Bush is a great president, and I still believe that.
Amen to that. I was in 5th grade on 9/11. I remember the strength.
He saved me.
Yep.
I didn't do it all by myself. There were people who think that, but
right.
I needed a lot of help, and he was critical to it.
And I truly believe he despite some of the other
and he loves America.
Right. He holds a special place in our heart.
I can disagree and get along with anybody who loves America.
Right.
But if you give me the feeling that you don't love America, we can't get along.
And that's today's Democrat Party, right? In the past, we didn't question whether they loved him, maybe sometimes, but it was more kind of silly pipe dreams, right? The left they were silly, but we didn't really question the patriotism. Today, with the way they talk, their rhetoric, their actions, how they speak about their fellow Americans, including the president, the sitting president of the United States,
everything
and his supporters,
is wrong.
Is anti-American.
Even things that they said originally they agreed with, they disagree with the minute he
agreed
with.
Yeah.
So how can you take him seriously?
Think Elon Musk, Tesla. People on the left loved trotting out their Teslas and green energy and electric cars and tell Musk.
Here's a party that used to be criticized, the Democratic Party, because they relied too much on the Jewish vote.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Democrat Party.
Right.
They have completely double-crossed and screwed Israel. Completely. If the Democrats had their way, Israel would be gone.
Right.
Palestine would take over, and the two-state solution. Suppose I was a mayor of New York presented with a two-state solution.
Well,
New York, and the one next to me wants to annihilate me.
And you're going to give them you're going to give them half of Manhattan.
I'm going to let them do that.
And you're just going to give them half of Manhattan, right? And they're going to live
I'm going to go kill them.
Yeah.
If they want to annihilate me, and you're doing it, I'm going to get rid of you. I don't care about politics, religion, ideology. You want to kill me and the people I'm responsible for that I have to protect. I'm sorry, I got to kill you first.
Does that go back to the founding of the state of Israel? Was that when they had some sort of carve-out for Palestine?
Israel was founded by and large, socialists and communists.
Yeah, right. A lot of Russians.
The original Israel were the kibbutz communes.
Right.
The kibbutz communes were right out of Karl Marx. In fact,
that's who they
attacked the part of Israel that's the most favorable to them.
Right. That
whole kibbutz area are a bunch of leftover peaceniks.
Unfortunately, probably the weakest point in the border.
I wonder why. I wonder what the psychology. There was a reason for that. There was a reason to go after them. I mean, if they wanted to go at
weak
BB's,
point.
They wanted to go at BB's base. These people hate BB.
Are these kibbutzes considered settlements?
Yes. No. The kibbutzes are the original people who came to Israel.
Okay.
They organized in what would be Marxist. Everybody owns the property. They were very extreme leftists, and extreme, always willing to compromise. Whereas Bibi was part of the Likud party. The Likud party was put together.
He founded
by
that, right?
Menachem Begin,
Oh,
who was a terrorist. Menachem Begin blew up the king, the big hotel. What is it, the King George Hotel? Or
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
he blew it up, and then he became prime minister of Israel because he made an evolution to a peaceful leader. I loved Menachem Begin, but he was a terrorist for his country, because if he wasn't, the English were never going to give up their ownership of that territory. Way back in 1917, 1918, the Prime Minister of England, Balfour, promised the Jews that area. It was never very clearly defined, but it was like Jerusalem out. So we're talking about, you go back to the Bible, the 2,000-year home of the Jewish people. Way back in 2000 BC, the Jews say Judea is our home. So you got different names for it, but Jerusalem is the key to it, right? So Balfour gives it to them. And then there's tremendous dispute about what are the boundaries, how does it exist? And the Arab population becomes pro-Hitler, pro-Nazi. So it's extremely confused. A very, 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 very confusing situation. But it's not helped by all of the, I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, here is a party that is based on, to a large extent, in American cities for a long time, the Jewish vote. And they want to double cross the Jewish people about having a homeland. I don't get it. And I don't get the Jewish people who still vote for them.
Right. I'm
sorry. I feel
they
like
get so mad when I say it. Yeah.
Only a Jew can say that, but I feel like I'm half a Jew. So.
Right. And I have many Jewish
I don't
friends.
understand that. I don't understand. I feel like a gentle slap across the face, like wake up. And how about the survival of your people?
Right.
Jack?
They don't seem to understand history.
These people want to end your people.
Right.
Now, if you like that, go do it.
And isn't that
But
interesting?
know you're doing it.
But and Mayor, the thing about folks like you and our side, we still defend these folks and their interests, despite the fact that they have great animosity towards us and seem to think we're in the wrong. That they think of these Hamas people as like heroes, yet we still look out for them.
I got to tell you one thing about the Jewish community, which I probably know better than most Republicans.
Of course you do.
They helped to elect Ronald Reagan.
Right. Interesting. How?
The last Republican.
Carter.
The last Republican who won New York, big time the first time. Second time too, was Ronald Reagan, and it was based on the Jewish vote.
Wow.
They just wiped Carter out, and they went for Reagan. And Reagan, when he came into office, didn't give them everything they wanted. So the second vote in 84 was a little less, but he still won it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if Bush won. Did he win New York or lose New York to? But he would have been the last Republican that won New York in a presidential race. I don't remember if he won or lost New York. I think he may have lost it. I think he hung on to California. He was the last one to hang on to California.
That's right. And Dukakis being from Massachusetts.
I think Dukakis beat him in New York.
It was close. Dukakis did. I mean, it was close in terms of, Dukakis 51.6%,
Yeah.
Bush 43.7%.
Well, I mean,
for New York, it's not.
Okay. So it had been a long time. I mean, Republicans basically won New York statewide. Our governor was a Republican, Rockefeller.
In 84, Reagan won 53.8% to Mondale's 45.8%.
Yeah, that's a wipeout.
Right. Oh yeah.
How about in 80?
In 1980, Reagan won. It was closer, 46.6% to Carter's 43.9%.
Well, there was a third party candidate.
Oh, You're right. Anderson, a gentleman named Anderson, had 7.5%. Funny how
Think
you knew that without even.
Think of a Republican like
40 to
Reagan,
40.
who's
That makes sense.
considered a major conservative, winning 53 or 54% of New York's vote.
That's amazing, right? It
Very
really
different,
shows
right?
how we change over time. And by the time we got to 92, Clinton had won.
Clinton was a perfect New York candidate.
He beat Bush 49% to 33%.
Yeah,
and
that was
Perot,
a-
of course, had 15%.
But think of the switch between 84 and 88, right?
Reagan up 8, losing
Reagan
by
wins
7.
by 8 and Bush loses by what?
About 8.
Yeah, that's 16-point swing.
Let's just see 2020.
That's the Jewish vote. The Jewish community distrusted Bush because of Baker, because they felt that Baker was very pro-oil, pro-Saudi Arabia, and that would overwhelm all of his considerations about the Middle East.
Mhm.
Whether that was fair or not, that was the view of him. So Bush never got, the first Bush never got the Jewish vote that Reagan got, which, as you see, was tremendous. Now, his son, until Trump came along, was probably the most favorable American president to Israel. And he did fairly well with the Jewish vote. But Karl Rove, genius notwithstanding, absolutely never knew how to run him in the Jewish community. My biggest objection to Karl Rove, who gets all this credit as a big Republican, is unlike Reagan, he never built a Republican majority off Bush's original victory. First, the second or third day I was elected mayor, the head of the Republican Party in New York came to me and said, here's our plan for re-election. We're going to use you to add people to the Republican Party. Nobody ever did that with Bush, and Karl Rove never did it because he just squeaked by the second time he ran. By that time, he should have had a Reagan kind of victory, or the kind of victory that Trump just had. But Karl Rove thought small, and that's why he's an opponent of Trump. It's a shame. I like Karl, but he's not very helpful to the growth of the Republican Party. So
we are following the vote, Mayor.
where are we? Are they taking the vote right now?
I believe this is still a procedural vote, but my understanding is they will soon be this may be the full vote.
Well, where is it right now?
My understanding that this
I see 109 Republicans. I don't see anything on the Democrats, do I?
Yeah. Nope, they're in lockstep.
They haven't voted yet?
Not yet.
Oh, yeah. It's 190 Republicans and 201 Democrats. That's about all of them. They're
Yep.
almost there. What are they, about 208 Democrats?
Yep. So where our understanding is that
Right now,
well, here's Speaker Johnson just
right now, the nays are winning.
Here's Speaker Johnson
Making sure that everyone's
minutes ago.
concerned. Well, it's been a long, productive day. We've been talking with members from across the conference and making sure that everyone's concerns are addressed and their questions are answered. And it's been a good day. We're in a good place right now. This is the legislative process. This is exactly how I think the framers intended for it to work. We feel very good about where we are and we're moving forward. So we're going to deliver the big, beautiful bill, the President's America First agenda, and we're going to do right by the American people. This is going to be a great thing for the country. Look forward to moving it forward.
You're going to pass.
That didn't tell us much.
Yeah, and that was just
I love
moments
him,
ago.
but he didn't tell us much.
Moments ago. So it's up in the air still, is our understanding from all the reading we've done. They're expecting to have some final debate. We may still have another hour or so before it's turned in, but tune in. Stay with us. Check the mayor's X account through the night. We'll make sure to post something if we get the final vote.
Here's what annoys me about this. Why don't you just give up, Chip Roy, and
Oh, I know.
just give up. Stop being a prick.
Right.
It's going to pass anyway.
The president has a
If
mandate,
it doesn't pass now, it's going to pass 2 weeks from now.
and the president
You're not
has
going to be
a mandate.
I don't care who you are, tough guy, Chip. You're
Tough
not Donald Trump.
Right.
He's going to overwhelm you and he's going to beat you. And if you really get annoying, he'll take you out of office.
Right. We'll primary him. Look, run for president. He's got these ideas.
I just don't want to have
too
too many of them. I don't want to spend time having to worry about settling scores in our party when we have to hold the majority.
Right. And it's like, at what point?
We got about 3 or 4 now that have to be destroyed.
Yeah. Run for president. You have these ideas. You want to have your line in the sand. Run for president of the United States. And if the people give you a mandate to lead, that's your time. Otherwise, at some point, you got to fall in line with the president who was.
Well, I got upset with Chip Roy when he was supporting DeSantis. And I don't hold against anybody supporting DeSantis if that was their legitimate view. But he got personally nasty about Trump. There's no reason for that. He had to say to himself, if he's an intelligent man and not an ideological idiot, that Trump might be the candidate of the party. We may have to. I always thought DeSantis might be the candidate of the party, and therefore I would never really, really attack him terribly. But that guy didn't have the discipline or the loyalty to do that. And now, doesn't he realize 90% of this bill is the tax reduction? The rest of it can be changed. And it's making it permanent. And last time we did this tax reduction, our economy became one of the best in American history. It's already soaring. You do a tax reduction, you make it permanent. It doesn't matter what the tariffs are. Now, I don't know what his motivation is. He wants attention or.
Right.
But it is a political party, and every once in a while, you have to subject your viewpoint to the will of the majority of your party when it's not an issue of conscience. And he doesn't seem to be able to do that. Who's the other guy that's constantly opposing?
Massey.
Oh, well, he's on his way out, right? Is he retiring?
He's not. No, that's Tom Tillis in the Senate.
Well, yeah, Tillis had the good sense to retire.
He knew he was. Well, as we close out here, we're still following. We have a huge chat group, so please comment below. We like to do this once in a while. Where you're tuning in from, give us your city and state. Comment below. Mayor Thomas Massey, the gentleman we were just talking about, Chip Roy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple others, and what we want to say is, look, it's not that we're opposed to them having principle, right, and being consistent in what they believe.
Go fight another day.
Right? Yeah.
The big message here is the tax reduction. That we have to give away some things on spending, and to get it is worth it. So then let's try to get those back next time. How about you work really hard on getting a bigger majority? Then you can get more of what you want instead of acting like a damn traitor, right?
Yes.
The answer here is, instead of having a 5 or 6 vote majority, have a 30 vote majority. Then you can get everything you want. But don't expect Johnson to do miracles with a 4 or 5 vote majority, with half of them being traitors. Why did the Democrats all vote lockstep? Not a single one of them voted for this bill. And some of them agree with it. Not every single Democrat disagrees with this bill. It's too much of a compromise to disagree with. But they're loyal Democrats. How come they can do that and we can't? I don't. And this is not a matter of principle. I'm sorry. Spending has been going on for too long to be a matter of principle. It's a matter of politics and when to best reduce it. And they do reduce some spending. They take a step in that direction. And I know about that. I did that in New York. I couldn't do it all in the first year. If I did it all in the first year, I would have lost credibility. I wouldn't have had it happen. I did a little of it, and then more, and then more. And finally, we ended up with a surplus. But you got to understand, you're in politics. You're not a child. You can't have your own way completely, Chip. Okay.
Well,
Ted,
we'll monitor this tonight.
We'll be back tomorrow, and we'll see how it all came out. 7:00 on Lindell TV. And you saw the embodiment of Lindell today. He's an unbelievable American original. Now, tomorrow he's going to be at the White House. I don't know if he wants people to know that, but we'll let you know the result of his White House meeting with the president.
Right. Yeah. Maybe he'll give us some inside information.
Oh, if we get him here, he'll tell us everything.
Yeah.
And we had our almost every other night guest,
Ali Reza, freedom fighter. What admiration we have for that man.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean,
I've met a lot of people through the mayor, and I got to say, Ali Reza. We won't name. I don't want to put anybody else on, name out there right now, but these guys have truly earned our admiration and respect in what they're doing, and it's hard to put into words. It's hard to put into words.
Yeah,
what they're doing for
fighting a real battle for freedom. And as an American, if you can't connect with that, you stop being an American. When you hear the word freedom, it takes you back to your roots, and they're going to win it. I'm feeling good about it. I'm feeling that it doesn't happen like always nice and clean. But we're getting there. We're much closer now than we were.
Yes, sir.
A year ago.
And all these guests tonight, I've been talking to our friend Joel in Israel. It's getting late tonight, so we're gonna have him on tomorrow. Remember, Joel?
Telephone?
Telephone, maybe video.
Good.
We'll see if Joel can do video.
Work that out, because I wanted to talk to you about that. We should get some more phone calls.
We got to get phone calls back. Joel in Israel. I mean, my goodness, we need to be talking to him with what's going on.
I'll see how he's doing.
So we'll check in with Joel tomorrow.
He call me on my radio show all the time.
Right. So we'll get him back on.
He was my Israeli correspondent.
We got to get him back. Shout out to Joel. Quick shout out to Tim, Gary, Bluebird Grandma. Sorry if I missed some of you guys who are in our chat right now, very active, helping out. Dave Wilson. Sorry if I missed some of you guys. We're signing off here, but we want to get you guys more involved, whether it's through phones or some sort of group video. Maybe we could do once a week question and answer on video. So stick with us. We read your comments every night.
Me too. It tells me what you're the most interested in. When we do that, I get a sense of what are people really the most interested in.
Right. So
pray for the people of Israel. Pray for the people of Ukraine. Pray for the people of Iran. Pray for everyone who's in jeopardy, and pray for the American president so that he has the wisdom to guide us and the world through all of this, because we need your help. God bless America.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. It was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze,